Welcome everybody, welcome. So I don't even know what I'm going to talk about today. I just decided that I would give my own input for once. I just thought I would bring a conscious conversation to the channel, as it's been a while. The first thing that comes to my head is talking about love. Because I think it's important to understand that the way that we look at the world is, on a whole, is very different to how we could be looking at the world, in terms of understanding how it works, our own perceptions of what makes this world and how it indeed functions. Love is the eternal force. It is equal to that of the life force. It is what we understand within this reality as the be-all. But love itself, it's an energy. We understand it as a feeling. But it's quite simply, it is an energy, and it's understanding that this energy not only permeates throughout our existence and creates us, but it also fashions itself throughout all of what we understand, the whole of reality, all the different universes, the different dimensions, everything from what we understand to everything we don't even have knowledge about. I think it's understanding that love in and of itself is such a powerful and creative force, and it has the ability to not only guide us in our own lives, but to fashion our present and our present futures, to understand that the love is a creative force. It's that which gives life. It is what furthers consciousness. And if we talk about love, obviously we have to talk about the idea of love and fear, the two polar opposites. And it's understanding that how we relate to love and how we relate to fear is two completely different approaches, but equally as coupled with each other. They're completely, not to say that they're reliant on each other, but it's the idea of opposites, and you can't necessarily have one without the other. That being said, it's that idea in and of itself which creates the duality. It's how we perceive the world itself, in which we allow the information of who we are and how we work, that kind of creates and embodies all the thoughts and emotions, and creates that within the world, whether it's in our world or indeed creates it in another dimension, if you will. And yeah, if we're not working from love, then we're working from fear, in whatever form or basis that we understand it. It's fear. Understanding that whatever reaction we have, whether it's out of desire or a survival trait, anger, whatever it is, it's understanding that it comes from a place of fear. So, what do I mean by a place of fear? I guess, a place of fear, or to live in fear, is to live without love. So to live without love is living in a place where there is no comfort. There is only being scared of the unknown. Fear is something which is in itself creates that drive that feeds the ego, feeds the physical body, and to a point which helps with the can help with the body's survival, but will not necessarily and most likely not help with the furtherment of the spirit, of our souls, of who we are. In that respect, it's realizing when we come from that place of fear, and when it starts to drive our egos, and it puts us so far out of our state of conscious being, of just being present, allowing that, stripping back everything else that is identified with us, that of the ego, that of the body, that of the mental mind, everything that's associated, everything that surrounds the soul. We strip all that away, then we get to our true selves, our true state of who we are. Not jumbled around with everything of the fear and everything else that is, building us up in the image of the ego. Wow, we're going to be going for 8 minutes. The channeling goes so much quicker, I tell you that. I think when we understand that fear keeps us in a perpetual state of the inability to move anywhere. Forgive my language. Yeah, it's like we look at fear, and what we understand is it's almost like a safety net, in the fact that what drives us then is only being driven from what we know. It's understanding that no matter what is causing that fear-based reaction, it is only then that we will fall back onto a way of being, a state of being in which we understand, and then we can move forwards, or so we think, move forwards in that particular motion. Even when we are suffering from anxiety or depression, it's something from it could be a number of things, but for a lot of the times it's understanding that it's a particular set of circumstances which has happened in the past, which we are kind of bringing ourselves back to the past to and bringing that to the present now, and we're living in that state and allowing ourselves to manifest that into the present, and in that sense we are kind of perpetuating that cycle. We're keeping that going, in which it's doing us absolutely no favours, but then our ego feels like it understands that as the only action to be in. at that time, for it doesn't see a safe way out, if you will. Yeah, and that's well, that's what it's like with anxiety. It's the same in a depressive state. It's the same. It's understanding that these states are kind of created in a within our bodies, and we're holding them within our bodies, within our minds, and we're not releasing them, which is easier said than done. I mean, I still have I say bouts of anxiety. I still get there's bits of anxiety that is still hanging around in my body. I'm still working through clearing that, and yeah, I think it comes in different layers, but for the most part, it's understanding that we have the power and the ability to remove that, just the same as we have the ability to remove anything else. We have the ability to remove the disease, the dis-ease from our bodies. You know, what we do is we are in a constant state of manifestation. So we're kind of creating these circumstances that we understand, you know, through our ego, through our understanding of our mental, our physical, you know. It's all these different states which we build up, and then we rely on our past, on the idea of the future, but we rarely live in the present now. Understanding that within the present moment, the idea of being present in this physical moment, of breaking yourself down and bringing out the conscious you, which is just present, which can just sit and be. That's the real you. And that's the one that we, you know, on a larger scale, all struggle to reach. But if we can strive to reach it, and it's almost it's one of those catch-22s, because it's not like we have to really strive in a physical sense. You know, it's not like it's not that much effort. It's the idea of letting go, of just surrendering, which is the hardest part. Yeah, the easiest part and the hardest part is realizing that, you know, throughout our whole lives we've built up all these different systems, ideas, concepts, and I want to say 70%, 80%, 90%, who knows, but most of them don't serve us in our current age. You know, all the ideas of that make us who we are, or our understanding of who we are and how this world works. Once we embed an idea in our heads, even if it's not our fault, even if it's been pushed on to us by society, by our ancestors, our family, even though it's not our fault, it's understanding that those ideas, and from a large majority, sit deep within our ego, within what we have built up around us and created who this facade, you know, this mask on who we are. And it takes a lot of work to be able to strip that down and peel away the layers to get us to who we truly are. But when you start to become conscious of your ego, and I mean, That's one of the buzzwords I think of right now, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But when you truly become conscious of it and your relationship with it, and you start to be able to see uh, objectively, subjectively, when you start to be able to see everything that makes up you, I'm going to say objective, from an objective point of view, and you can just sit within that conscious state, even if it's just for a moment, that's when you start to have that break in the ego. That's when you start to see you for who you truly are, and especially see you for who you truly aren't. And that's when you start to break everything down. That's when that awakening starts to occur. Even on that small scale, it was, it's just like the little snowball that builds into a big boulder. It's exactly the same. It's just it goes from there, and then yeah, a year later you wonder how you got there. 2 years later you wonder how you got there from the first year, and then 5 years later you're a completely different person. There's a massive idea within our society that matter comes before consciousness. The world, the universe was created, matter was born, and then, there was a conscious idea, there was consciousness born within some aspect of the world, within humans, within blah, blah, blah. No, it's, what is it? I think, therefore I am. And then quite often it's the forgotten part of it. I am, therefore I think. And to that point, within our relationship within the world, I believe it's you can't have one without the other. Consciousness creates matter. Consciousness is all of what we understand. All that is consciousness. Our relationship with it is what is the important thing. Yeah, and it's not to say, going back to when we were talking about stripping down who we are, it's not to say that, we need an aspect of the ego. It's understanding our relationship with it and getting it to a a healthy ego, if you will, to then be able to move forward within this reality, to be able to manifest and create what we will, what we can, what we want, that will really fulfill us. Understanding that a lot of what we believe we want in this reality right now, or the future, should I say, or in the past, what we believe from our egoic point of view, our egoic state, is not what the soul wants. It's what the ego feels like you want, or wants you to strive for, because it's fueling that. It's like capitalism. Capitalism comes from our egoic state. It's just from a global consciousness view of it. It's understanding that it's not a sustainable system by far. There's so many holes, and it crumbles away in so many different areas, and that's just like who we are. When we're now starting to see the idea of treating ourselves in a holistic sense, the idea of the holistic, it's exactly the same with us on a global level. It's exactly the same with climate change, the way in which we treat each other as countries, as race. It's understanding our relationship on a whole. Our relationships with whom we are, with spirit, with consciousness. But we don't see that as a whole. We're not there yet, and that's fine. That's perfectly fine. It's everyone's journey to get there, and that's the important point, is that everything that we do is on an individual level. We have to look after ourselves before we can begin to sort out the issues of the world and everything else, because we are the world. We are consciousness, and when we get that understanding through, when we realize that we are all that we can be and need to be, then we will reflect the change necessary to change the world. It's understanding that our relationship with that is paramount to our own evolution within consciousness. And that is a that is a hard lesson in and of itself. I think that's one, that I personally struggle with, and again, I'm learning to let go more in those areas. It's very interesting after starting doing work with Extinction Rebellion, and that's just, that in and of itself changed my world. And it's not right, okay, skip the exile stuff. It's not to understand that we shouldn't have then go into a place of inaction. It is it's realizing that we have to look after ourselves first, but again, we don't have to become the wise old sage before we can then strive out into the world and create that change. It's understanding that if what we do comes from that place of love, that place of positive intention, then we are then sending that love out into the universe, into the world. And if we can do each of these actions, whatever we feel compelled to do from the true self, if we can do that from a place of love, from a place of understanding, then we can create the change that we want within our own realities. But yeah, just small steps. Allow ourselves to wake up gently at our own pace, and go from there. Spread love and understanding to everyone that you meet, and we will create the reality that we want to see. So thank you very much. I actually didn't think that I would come out with anything, considering my improvisation skills are shocking. But yeah, if you liked it, then please give it a like, share it, and just give me feedback. Tell me what you would like to hear. That would be great. And yeah, until then, I'll stay positive, and I hope that you guys do too. All right, love and Omni. Namaste.